Welcome back, everyone. After the World Cup, it wasn't just the players who made moves. Many managers did too. A lot of national teams decided to appoint new head coaches. Clubs have also continued to strengthen their squads during the transfer window. Even though we didn't see many €100 million signings this week, there are still plenty of important stories to talk about. So let's take a look at what's happening in the football world. France have officially appointed Zinedine Zidane as their new head coach. Zidane has signed a 4-year contract with the French national team. Didier Deschamps' departure wasn't a surprise. He had already announced that he would leave after the World Cup. But that wasn't enough to inspire the team, as France finished the tournament in 4th place. The 3rd place match turned out to be Deschamps' final game in charge. Even so, there's no doubt he was one of the most successful tournament managers in football. Under his leadership, France won the 2018 World Cup, reached the 2022 World Cup final before losing to Argentina on penalties, and this year finished 4th after losing the 3rd place match. Zidane isn't known as a tactical mastermind. What makes him special is something different. He won 3 consecutive Champions League titles as a manager and has proven that he knows exactly how to handle knockout tournaments. He's an outstanding man manager and did a brilliant job leading that legendary Real Madrid squad around 2018. For France, Zidane is also a national hero. Because of that, I think he'll have a huge influence on both the dressing room and the players. In my opinion, France have chosen the best possible manager, someone who can win tournaments and earn the complete trust of his squad. Roberto Mancini is back as Italy's head coach. Saying Italy had a bad World Cup wouldn't really be accurate, because they didn't even make it. In fact, Italy have now failed to qualify for 3 consecutive World Cups. That's the problem they're desperately trying to fix. To do that, they've gone back to a coach who has already succeeded with the national team, Roberto Mancini. Interestingly, Andrea Pirlo was reportedly their first choice. However, reports claimed that his sponsorship deal with a Russian betting company could have caused problems, so Italy decided not to appoint him. Mancini famously led Italy to victory at Euro 2020, and during his time in charge, the team went 37 matches unbeaten, setting a world record. Despite that incredible run, Italy still missed the World Cup after being knocked out in the qualification playoffs. Mancini left the national team in 2023, and his departure came as a surprise. Now he's back with one clear mission: repeat the success he brought before. For Germany, the last World Cup was nothing short of a disaster. They were knocked out by Paraguay in a penalty shootout. In response, the German Football Association turned to Jürgen Klopp. After leaving Liverpool, Klopp took some time away from football. His name was linked with Real Madrid during that period, but it seems he was ready to return. And he chose the German national team. Managing Germany isn't an easy job these days. After years of disappointing results, the atmosphere around the national team has become tense and extremely critical. Klopp addressed that pressure directly. "I'm not doing this for myself, I'm doing it for you. I've seen how you treated Julian Nagelsmann, and I'm still taking this job. I've seen how you treated Thomas Tuchel, and I'm still taking it. But if you attack my family, I'm gone. If you think I'm terrible, tell me to my face and I'll leave immediately without asking for any compensation." The situation is completely different in the United States. Mauricio Pochettino had a successful World Cup with the US national team. According to David Ornstein, he's now set to extend his contract through the 2030 World Cup. Gonçalo Ramos has officially joined AC Milan. The transfer is worth €74 million, and he's signed a 5-year contract. Looking at his career, Ramos has never been the kind of striker who puts up huge goal numbers. Most fans remember him from his time at PSG. His biggest strength is his work rate. He likes to press defenders, constantly makes runs in behind the backline, chases defenders all over the pitch and uses his height well to win aerial duels. Personally, I don't expect him to score a massive number of goals for Milan. Last season, he played 30 matches for PSG and scored 6 goals. But goals aren't really the main reason Milan signed him. Under Ruben Amorim's system, he'll be the hard-working striker who presses relentlessly and never stops running. Now let's move on to Rafael Leão. The Milan winger has received offers from Turkey. Both Galatasaray and Fenerbahçe are interested, but right now Galatasaray are the club making the stronger push. Their proposal is a loan deal with an option to buy. However, Milan aren't interested in that structure. They want 50 million euros paid up front. When asked about the situation, Ruben Amorim simply said, "Nothing has changed. He's still our player." Personally, I think Milan are open to selling Leão. When you look at today's market, where Gonçalo Ramos costs 74 million euros, asking 50 million euros for Leão actually feels surprisingly low. After all, he was named Serie A Player of the Season in 2021-22. Following Zlatan Ibrahimovic's era, it almost felt like Milan had handed the team over to him. But things didn't quite work out that way. Back when he won the MVP award, selling him seemed almost impossible. Last season, he still contributed with goals and assists, but overall it was a frustrating campaign and his performances were a bit below the standard people expect from him. Now, a transfer is once again on the table. That said, Leão is still under contract with Milan until 2028, so the club is in a very strong position. Whether he stays or leaves will ultimately be Milan's decision. According to Gianluca Di Marzio, Randal Kolo Muani is heading back to Juventus. The deal will be a loan with a mandatory purchase clause. Juventus will pay 4 million euros for the loan, then 34 million euros to make the move permanent, with another 12 million euros in potential bonuses. Kolo Muani is already a familiar face in Torino. Back in 2025, he joined Juventus on loan from PSG and scored 8 goals in 16 matches. He later returned to PSG but wasn't part of their plans, so he was loaned out again, but this time to Tottenham. Last season with Spurs, he played 30 Premier League matches, scoring just 1 goal and providing 1 assist. Of course, that wasn't entirely his fault. Tottenham had a disappointing season as a whole. Juventus manager Luciano Spalletti reportedly described him as perfect for his system. He expects Kolo Muani to make runs in behind, hold up the ball, link play with teammates, and finish chances with real determination. Even if he's currently out of form, Juventus have decided to bring back a striker they've already tested before. Whenever people hear the name Kolo Muani, I'm sure most of them immediately think about that chance in the World Cup final between France and Argentina. Honestly, even if the ball bounced off the goalkeeper, I'd still call it a missed chance. That dramatic opportunity in the final seconds came against Emiliano Martinez, a moment Kolo Muani probably still sees in his nightmares. And now, here's the interesting part. Juventus are also interested in signing Emiliano Martinez as their backup goalkeeper. Spalletti reportedly described Martinez as one of the players who can change a team. However, the two clubs couldn't reach an agreement. Aston Villa's asking price was simply too high for Juventus. I have to admit, I'd love to hear the first conversation between those two if they ever became teammates. Who knows? Maybe Kolo Muani's biggest nightmare could end up sitting right next to him in the dressing room. John Stones has signed a 2-year contract with Inter. He left Manchester City as a free agent. At 32 years old, he's certainly not at the end of his career for a centre-back. Inter have also completed the signing of Aleksandar Stanković. The 20-year-old defensive midfielder originally left Inter for Club Brugge in 2025 with a buyback clause included in the deal. Inter have now activated that clause and brought him back for around 23 million euros, even though his current market value is estimated at 32 million euros. Stanković is a reliable holding midfielder who rarely misses games through injury. He likes to receive the ball deep, dictate play with his passing, switch the play with long balls, find teammates between the lines, and isn't afraid to move forward and shoot when the opportunity is there. He's a young, balanced midfielder with plenty of potential. For now, he'll probably be a rotation player behind Hakan Çalhanoğlu and Nicolo Barella. But in the long run, Inter may see him as an investment, someone who could eventually replace one of those two. Fenerbahçe have completed the signing of Mason Greenwood for €39 million. Greenwood's career can almost be divided into two parts, before the case and after the case. When he was just 20 years old, he was considered one of Manchester United's biggest wonder kids. Then came the legal case involving his girlfriend. The charges were eventually dropped before the case went to trial. After conducting their own internal investigation, Manchester United decided it was not appropriate for Greenwood to continue at the club and chose to sell him. He was never convicted of a crime. However, leaked recordings and images led to his suspension from the team. He later joined Marseille, where he performed well and raised his market value to around €55 million. That eventually led to his move to Fenerbahçe. Greenwood has always denied all the allegations, and he never went to prison. Does that automatically prove he's innocent? Honestly, I don't know. Manchester City have extended Joško Gvardiol's contract until 2031. As a result, Real Madrid's interest has gone nowhere. Real Madrid have now turned their attention to another Manchester City star, Rodri. According to Fabrizio Romano, the two clubs have already started verbal negotiations. Reports suggest that Florentino Perez has set aside around €50 million for the deal. Real Madrid's interest in Rodri isn't exactly surprising. Before the World Cup, the midfielder had already shown that he would be open to the move. If the player wants to leave, the big question is how difficult Manchester City will make the transfer. Even so, this deal looks like it has a strong chance of happening. According to another report from David Ornstein, Arsenal are interested in signing Vinícius Júnior from Real Madrid. At the moment, there hasn't been an official offer. However, Vinícius's current contract expires on June 30th, 2027, and he still hasn't signed an extension with Real Madrid. If that situation doesn't change, he'll be free to negotiate with other clubs during the winter. Real Madrid have no intention of letting that happen. Instead of risking losing him for free, they'll either convince him to sign a new contract or consider selling him. Right now, Real Madrid have already made him a contract extension offer. Meanwhile, Arsenal are preparing their first official bid and are ready to submit it. Real Madrid are also pushing to sign Yan Diomande from RB Leipzig. PSG were also in the race at one point, but the asking price became too high, so they pulled out. At the moment, reports suggest that Real Madrid have put together a package worth around €120 million. It looks like they'll get the deal done for that amount, or maybe a little more. Diomande is only 19 years old and plays on the right wing. With Rodrigo facing a long-term injury, he could arrive as an option for that position. He's a winger who loves to take defenders on in one-on-one situations. His game is built around dribbling, pace, and explosive acceleration. Whenever he gets the ball, his first instinct is to beat his defender, drive into the penalty area, or take a shot. You could say he's a very Vinícius-style winger. So far, he's played 33 Bundesliga matches, scoring 12 goals and providing 9 assists. To be honest, only a handful of clubs can afford transfers like these. Most of that kind of spending happens in the Premier League. During last season's summer and winter transfer windows combined, Premier League clubs spent around €4 billion. The closest league was Serie A, where clubs spent roughly €1.4 billion. The gap is enormous. Premier League clubs spend almost 3 times more than their closest competitors, and this summer doesn't look any different. So far, Chelsea, Tottenham and Manchester City have already gone past the €100 million mark in transfer spending. On top of that, even the mid-table clubs in England continue to spend heavily compared to teams in most other leagues. Over in Germany, Edin Dzeko has signed with Schalke. Honestly, it's incredible. The man is 40 years old and he's still going to be playing in the Bundesliga. Not long ago, he was making headlines for reaching the Champions League final at the age of 37. He just never seems to slow down. And finally, let's talk about the reigning Bundesliga champions. They've made it clear that Michael Olise is not for sale. That announcement came after reports linking him with Real Madrid. The club also said that the player himself wants to stay at Bayern Munich. There was also an update on Luis Díaz. Reports had suggested that Al Hilal wanted to sign him and were ready to offer a salary of 23 million euros per year. But Bayern's CEO shut those rumors down as well. His message was simple: we're not selling him. And finally, Bayern announced that, as far as this summer is concerned, their transfer business is done. No more arrivals, no more departures. They've closed the book on this transfer window before August has even begun. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.